Hello friends, Jennifer Pearson here, Thistle Gypsy. I don't come on and show my face very much anymore, but hello there. um, so I just did something the other day, and well, partly yesterday and partly today, and I just wanted to share it. And who knows, maybe the questions will be something that will be helpful to somebody. And it was just, I just really enjoyed it because it took me back through some of my decks. This is not the way I would normally attack a question, but this is the way I decided to attack this question. And I did, it's two questions. One is, why am I dissatisfied in my life? And I don't feel like I'm dissatisfied with my life, but there's some sort of dissatisfaction going on. That is not typical for me and that I don't think is a result of any illnesses or anything of that sort. And then I decided to also ask a question: what will amend this dissatisfaction, this feeling of dissatisfaction? And what I decided to do was kind of go whole hog and go through a bunch of decks, many of which I don't pull from that often. So I think I did 10 tarot decks, and in restricting myself, which again I don't normally have this level of discipline, but restricting myself to one card for each of the questions. And then I did 10 or 12 oracle decks. And I did this in relatively quick succession and recorded in, kind of briefly the answers that I was getting from the various decks. And definitely found some patterns. So what I then did, not unlike kind of the scorekeeping I was doing with the dark deck interviews that I did, was I got a columnar. I got a columnar sheet, and I just wrote down kind of for each. I went back through the notes I'd made as I was pulling the cards, and I just selected the type of feedback I was getting. So, and it was fun to do this, in part to see what decks were really good. It's like I haven't used the Herbal Tarot in a long time, and I was losing touch a little bit with how good the Herbal Tarot is, but the Herbal Tarot is really good. It was really good for me. I don't know that I've ever used the inner child cards for a question. I don't know that I've ever used them, but I pulled those out and they also did great. Oddly, this was an outside deck in terms of, kind of out there for this sort of thing. I got out my Tarot of Physics, and it was super. It was really good. I used the Force of Enchantment, which also I thought might give me, I was actually kind of wanting it to give me more inner child kind of a message, but it didn't. It gave me something more adult to think about. The Art History for Past Lives, I read it, and I think this is the first time I've attempted to read it having nothing to do with past lives, just looking at the images. And again, it gave me a pretty direct reading. And also the Majestic Earth Tarot, which I don't think I have ever used for a serious inquiry, and it also gave me pretty direct messages. So yeah, in fact, the vast majority did. I ended up kind of casting some doubts on the Oracle of Mystical Moments, and I think this wasn't the best use of the Wisdom of Trees. But other than that, pretty good and pretty consistent. So I was going to share with you. Now, this question came from, like, I've talked a little bit on my channel that I feel like I'm having some problems with depression, and that isn't like clinical depression, but the sort of thing that prevents you from functioning as fully in your life as you probably would if you weren't, having a low-grade depression. I'm not attacking things and being efficient and really getting things done the way I think I would be in kind of my in a healthier state. But this was a moment where I came up with these questions when I had finished something. I don't know if I was watching videos. I wasn't doing something constructive, but it was over. It was done. I was done with it. And I just put it aside, and I just felt like I was just sitting there, like, I felt kind of like a teenager, like a teenager that doesn't know what to do next, is feeling this dissatisfaction. Safe, everything's fine, well fed, you know, feeling safe, and yet, this, yeah, just feeling dissatisfied. Like something is off, something isn't right. There's something feeling a little bit too aimless, kind of, or disengaged or something. And it was funny because I felt it in that moment as I was laying there. I just thought, I don't think I've felt like this since I was a teenager. I don't think I've had a moment quite like this since I was a teenager. So partly because maybe my life has been too full of cares and stuff. I don't know. And goals and stuff. So I'm going to read some of the issues that came up. I think it's just a matter of my processing of these things. So on this sheet from a columnar pad, I just jotted these things down. So the question, which I've framed here as the problem, was, why am I dissatisfied in my life? And I'm reading these partly because, I don't know, maybe they'll resonate with some other people as perhaps things that affect them as well. Some of them are a little bit insidious. So you kind of don't see them coming, or don't realize the impact that they have on you. And I marked them, like how frequently, how many times this issue came up. So, started with pollution by negative speech. In other words, the negativity of others, whether directed specifically at me or at others. And this was something that the Tarot of Physics was telling me, essentially about how I was being affected by things that didn't touch me. And this was particularly one that had to do with sound and sound waves and what they travel through. And yeah, and it was just after having a negative conversation with somebody. I pulled these, and it's like, oh my gosh, the Tarot of Physics is right on. Being energetically drained, and I think these two, pollution by negative speech and being energetically drained, are very similar, are related. And I had two things being polluted by negative speech or impacted by negative speech, and then three incidents of, or messages that said being energetically drained. And then not feeling inspired and not feeling that there are any rescuers. You know, there's no one to rescue me in any given situation. And I don't mean that like in little everyday things. I think I just mean that somehow in a just, I don't know, a big picture kind of a way. Because I do have people who are helpers in my life. You know, thank heavens they have in fact rescued me at times. A need for connection to nature, a need to grieve, and that came up 3 times. Being passive instead of active, that has come up twice. Being too silent came up 4 times, and it came up many times. So it's opposite. Almost always with these, the solution is implied by the problem. So if I'm suffering from pollution by negative speech, then obviously I need my boundaries, right, for that kind of thing. So some things kind of will come up in both. So yeah, being too silent. In other words, I need to be more expressive, and I think that this has to do with politics. That came up 4 times. Doors being closed or a lack of options. The need to connect to others came up twice. Not nurturing my whole self came up twice. Blandness, a lack of things to celebrate, came up twice. A need to move to a different area, and that has a lot to do with the whole energy vibe. And not allowing time for rest. Okay, so those were problems, you know, kind of why am I dissatisfied in my life? So what will amend this dissatisfaction? And these were much more concentrated and specific. There were many more multiples in I'm not saying that correctly. There were many more. There were 2. There's 2 on here. So it's not many. It's 2 that were mentioned many times. That's what I'm trying to say. 2 that were mentioned many times. So, and this first is one of them. The need for boundaries against negative energy. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times that came up. Start speaking out or standing up for beliefs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. So those are the biggies. And so clearly, especially with that number 2, the speaking out or standing up, is something that I need to start figuring out how to do. And really, it isn't that I don't know how to do it. It's like what platform, what avenue, and there's a reason that I have been silent and I have not done this. And it isn't about not wanting to stand up for beliefs or whatever. I'm just tired. It's the sleepy. I'm just tired. In my waking hours, I don't want to be fighting with people. I don't want to be arguing. I really don't want to be that involved in politics, even though I have strong feelings about social justice. I don't want to have to deal with facts and, you know, what happened in this situation. I mean, some things are like so clearly wrong, it's not even funny. So, you know, like the George Floyd thing is just, you don't even, you hardly need facts. You hardly need, there's like 2 facts, you know. 1 fact, the policeman killed him unjustly. That you know, you know, there's really nothing else that needs to be said there. I keep trying to amend this situation. I keep making it worse. I have crooked shoulders. I don't even know why, but that always happens. My shirts always slide down one area. All right, so let's look at the other ones. Establish or adhere to a rule book. I found that really weird. I found that just really weird feedback. Yeah, I might have to go back and look at that one. I think that there's something of value there. I just find it really strange. Like, what kind of rule book would that be referring to? Um, I think it has to do like with an ethics, um, but it wouldn't. Yeah, I don't know. So, time in nature or walking, and I'm surprised that didn't come up more often, actually. Um, need to contribute to community, giving and receiving gifts slash retail therapy. So it actually is kind of, if you're into retail therapy, or like I've been buying decks, then that's positive reinforcement. But I was really surprised to see that. But it came up twice. Um, yeah, asking for help came up 3 times. Finding people with similar values came up twice. Finding something I'm motivated to finding something I'm motivated to focus on. That came up 3 times. And I feel like I do have, you know, but each time it was more like find something similar or singular, something really absorbing, something really singular. Um, yeah, so I don't know that like collages or finishing my project with the Weaver's Oracle. I'm not sure that they are kind of what it's talking about. Um, so I'm not sure about that because I think I don't know. So I'm not sure what exactly that is, but I think it means kind of something all encompassing. Um, but there's certainly something about needing to focus and exclude anything outside of that one intention. And so I don't know if that's, do I relate that then back to the speaking thing and that's what I'm going to do? I don't know. I have yet to integrate this information, obviously. Taking time to grieve, that interestingly, even though it came up, what is needing to grieve? Needing to grieve came up 3 times, and yet taking time to grieve only came up once in the solution. So that's a little curious. A need to relocate came up twice, and brainstorming alternatives and seeing things from different perspectives. And then connection to others came up once. So obviously a lot of these have to do with my being so hermitish. But it is kind of funny that I am so hermitish, and yet it was it there was so much coming up about needing to have boundaries, considering how infrequently I go out. So it means that I need to be putting up boundaries within, say, the people I interact with online. I don't actually get on Facebook very much. I mean, I guess I usually get on it daily, but not very much. I don't interact on there very much, and I don't know that that's where I'm going to be doing the speaking out. Um, and I think I've said somewhere else in some other reading that I needed to be sharing somehow more. So I might do something, but I might make it for lighter stuff on Facebook. Um, but I just don't think that that's a very good avenue for sharing one's thoughts and ideas. It's just too reactive. So I don't know what I'm going to do. But I clearly need to start speaking out or standing up for my beliefs. So, and maybe that's part of the the thing is, what maybe I need to um, find one particular thing of that sort that I want to engage about. There's just so much. There's so much that could be said. So much. So there it is. Why am I dissatisfied in my life? What will amend this dissatisfaction? Going hog wild, dragging out tons of decks over 2 days, getting responses and kind of cataloging them a little bit. The responses, it was a great sort of bath. It's like a tarot and oracle bath, and grabbing and getting out decks I've hardly used. Haven't had the time to spend, you know, with each of them because I got so many decks last year, and of course I'm doing a fair job of getting a number of decks this year. So yeah, you could ask, why am I so happy in my life? And what will help continue that happiness? Maybe that'll be my next set. But I really liked getting out all of my decks, or not all of my decks by any means, but a large bunch of my decks, and digging into these questions and recording them. And it didn't take a huge amount of time, and it didn't take to actually do them, and to get something out of it also isn't going to take a lot of time. What I'll probably do next is break down some of these into pulls, probably with a Rider-Waite-Smith deck. Maybe I'll get out my golden Art Nouveau or something and just ask, or my trip and wait, and ask things like, on in what way, on what platform should I be expressing my beliefs? What particular belief, outrage, or should I be speaking on? What is this? What should I focus on, create as a the problem with that focus is that the focus can also be quite isolating. So is there a way that I can focus on something that is less isolating and yet doesn't put me in a space where I'm getting bombarded with negative energy? So how does that happen? How does that happen when you have, and that's something that was, I was starting to think about as I was doing, as the cards were coming up and kept saying, you need to speak out, you need to speak out, you need to not be silent. And some of it seemed to be indicating by the pairs that were, the problem and the response seemed to be saying that by speaking up, you draw people to you who have similar beliefs. But by the same token, frequently when you speak up, you draw out also trolls, people with the opposite viewpoint. And I really have found that I don't have a very high tolerance for people with the opposite viewpoint. What's, that's in the environment right now, isn't it? That lack of tolerance. At least, in the trollish way, I'll say this. I don't mind different perspectives, but the trollish sort of thing that goes on, like on Facebook, that I just don't have much tolerance for. I mean, it's delete time for me. I just delete them. Oh, look at that. cousin so-and-so said something nasty. Well, we'll just delete that. um, yeah, so there are definitely some things that need some further exploration here. But I just find, somehow I find the things that have come out here kind of validating. You know, none of these decks were like sticking their tongue out at me and saying, you know, you had nothing to complain about. You had no reason to be dissatisfied. Um, but it's clear that, you know, at the same time that the solutions are a lot in my control. You know, they are things I can effectively do. And so that's positive. You know, it's not like I did this and I ended up feeling more dissatisfied or helpless or anything like that. It's like, all right, okay, all right, I see. I see what I need to do. Not exactly how to do it, but I see what I need to do. Um, yeah, so there it is. And I've managed to ramble. So I definitely have that skill set down. Um, thanks everybody. And again, I hope this I don't know, spurs some ideas for ways to use your deck. You know, just 2 questions. Use tons of decks and have a ball. Getting to see how well your decks um, respond to certain questions and the odd the oddball rule books thrown at you. You're like, what? Rule books? What are you talking about? That came from the baseball tarot. Um, So yeah, everybody, take care and see you again soon. Bye-bye.